What up guys, it's Rob Mall for Life here today, and I'm finally back again on YouTube. Now, I've been gone for around a month or a month from this channel. I didn't mean to be leaving from this channel. It was just I had some technical issues that prevented me from uploading videos, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But in this video, we're going to be talking about how to beat characters with time traveling powers. Now, I absolutely love this series. This is my favorite series. I haven't done one of these videos in quite some time, even before the whole, month hiatus, but I really love this series. I think it's very interesting, and I think it's very important to get into there. So let's first talk about why I haven't been uploading for like this past month. Now, like I said, it wasn't intentionally. It was some technical issues that I had, and I just want to go through a brief little explanation on what happened. Now, I did post up on my community board and stuff. I explained what happened, but I don't know if a lot of you guys checked it out, so I'll just explain it in this video again. So while around that time I was going to school and I was doing quite a bit of homework, so most of the time I was spending just doing homework and going to school. And sometimes I was uploading videos around that time still, but while I was doing this, I was recording gameplay in the middle of the night. So I would do homework for a couple of hours, and then towards the later night, I would record for like an hour and a half to 2 hours each day, just recording gameplay for these videos. Because some videos, when I do reaction videos, I show my face. When I don't, I just usually use gameplay because it does help out a lot with the production value of my videos. It's something for you guys to stimulate your eyes with when you're hearing me speak, but also on top of that, it does help out with a lot of other problems that I might have, because I wouldn't really need to worry about my angling or my lighting or any of that stuff. It does help out a lot of stuff, but yeah, while I was recording the gameplay, what happened was I recorded too much at once, to the point where I took up not only all the memory file onto my game capture card, but I also took up majority of the space on my laptop. So while this happened, I was in a bad situation because, one, I did record some videos. Apparently it wouldn't allow me to record the audio. Usually I record audio and the visuals separately, but it wouldn't allow me to do that, so I just recorded the visuals and I thought it would be fine. But from what I found out, when I tried to when I did the editing and I tried to upload it on YouTube didn't allow the video to go through at all. The file would not work at all. So I knew I had to free up some space. I didn't want to delete the videos because I did spend hours, recording the videos and stuff. But in the end of the day, I had to bite the bullet and delete some of the videos. And around this time, I was kind of swamped with a lot of homework. So luckily right now I'm towards the end of my quarter, so I don't have to worry too much about the homework, but I was kind of swamped with the homework, so I was dealing with the homework, and then also I wanted to fix this, but I felt like the problem was too big, so I kind of put it on the back burner. Luckily, I fixed the problem yesterday and I was able to upload those 2 videos, which I did require a month prior. I did require like a couple of days after my last video, so those are kind of older videos. This one is more recently, it's today, so yeah, you guys are lucky for that one. But yeah, I had that problem. Luckily, I fixed the problem. There's no more technical issues. My computer still has a limited amount of space, but I have freed up enough I've deleted some which I didn't want to do, but I had to, so I freed up enough space. So don't worry, I will not go on hiatus again. If I ever do that, I will just tell you guys beforehand. Unless something happens, then the assumption is probably just some problems that I have with my my setup and stuff. So that was the only reason that I wasn't uploading for a while. Now I want to give a shout out to a viewer of mine by the name of Zones. Let me see. Zone Z1. Big thank you to Zone Z1, because as I uploaded my video yesterday, he messaged me in the comment section and he said, "Hey, I like your videos. I think your channel's underrated." And he's like, "I'm bored. I just have some free time. I'll do it for free for you." So he wants to make me some thumbnails. So I just want to give this guy a big shout out, because that's such a nice thing to do. It's very generous. He doesn't have to. He's doing it for free and taking time out of his day to make me thumbnails. He could simply just sit back and watch and enjoy my videos and comment saying, "I like your videos." But he went out of his way to make thumbnails thumbnails for me, so I really appreciate that. And because of that, he's going to be making the thumbnail for my next video, which is going to be the Goku versus Superman death battle that I did before. I'm going to redo it again, like I mentioned before. So when he's done with the thumbnail, I will be uploading that video. So for right now, I'm just going to have other videos. I'm going to be recording other videos for that moment. But yeah, thank you to Zone Z1. Big shout out to the guy, it means a lot to me because he didn't have to, like I said, but he did out of the kindness of his heart, and that really means a lot to me. So I really appreciate you guys as my fans. This is really amazing. I've seen other channels have, fans create banners for them and, thumbnails before too and stuff like that, but I didn't expect it to happen to me, especially at this stage of my, YouTube career. I'm still pretty early in it. So yeah, once again, big shout out to him, big thank you to him. Give him a round of applause. That's very amazing. And besides him, I had another commenter, a guy named CJ. He was giving me a lot of shit for my last videos. He was going off, but you know what? I expect that. I just want him to know that he's wrong and I'm right, and he's a dumbass and I'm not. So that's all I have to say about that. But let's get into this. Let's stop wasting time. So people with time traveling powers. Now, there's many different types of time traveling powers, and you also need to take in consideration the fictional universes that have, the way time works. Because I mentioned before countless times that time works differently through different fictional worlds. Some fictional worlds, whatever events you affect in the past will affect the future, whereas other ones, if you go back to the past, you're just going to create a separate timeline. So those two things can have a significant effect on these time traveling powers. And this is mainly, I'm just establishing this to talk about characters that might be going against other characters from different universe. These people like to use a set character that has time traveling powers and saying, well, this character can use time traveling powers and can affect that person, but you also got to take consideration the different universes and how those time traveling powers work. Also, there's many different ways that time traveling can work. There is time stopping, there is slowing down time, there is skipping forward through time, there is, just manipulating time altogether. There is, some characters can only go forward in time, some characters can only go backwards, some characters can manipulate it all over. So there's many different things, and it can get very complicated because time traveling does create a lot of time paradoxes. And I do think there's some characters that do have the abilities where not only can they travel through time, but they can also negate the facts of time paradoxes. But yeah, time traveling as a whole is a big mess, so it's going to be kind of hard to get through it in this video. Now, like I said, there are many different types of time control. Personally, I think the weakest would be for me is slowing down time. Yes, it is very useful still, because imagine it, you have an opponent that's coming after you, you can slow down their time. So if they throw a punch, you'll see their punch slower. Even if they're faster, you can slow it down so it can give you at least, a big benefit in a fight. So that is very, impressive, but compared to the other time traveling abilities, that is the weakest. Then I'll say time skipping, like Hit's time skip, where you can skip forward in time. It is very, impressive, but it's a little confusing. I think from what they explained it is, whatever events was going to happen would happen. It's just that it goes forward there. There is a countermeasure to it that Goku showed, but this is a little more complex because at least time slowing down is simple. It's just you slow down time. Stopping time is just stopping time. But this is skipping forward in time, but it's like, well, if you skip forward in time, then how would you do the effects? Would you know? And so it gets a little more confusing, but I think skipping forward in time, though it is quite powerful and very useful, it has some problems to it that you can exploit. Whereas stopping time, it's a lot more difficult to handle that. And then just pure time manipulation, like going forward in time and back in time, that is also very powerful. I don't know which one's more powerful, being able to completely manipulate time or having the ability to stop time 100%, because both of those can be very, very dangerous to fight against. Now, for those who have the ability to slow down time, it really depends. Like, let's say if they can slow down time, some characters might have different durations of how much time they can slow down, because it depends on their power. It's not just the styles of power, like by styles I mean like different types of it, but also the levels to those types. So even if somebody has the ability to slow down time, it really matters about how powerful that time slowing down power is, because there's a couple of variables that go into it. One is how much of time could it slow down, and two, how long can it do that, because they can't just slow down time forever. So Those two things are very important. If it slows down time by a bit, it's not going to be that useful. It's still going to have some uses, but it's not going to be that useful. And if it is limited to how much time it can slow down to, like if it's like very insignificant, it's not going to be also very beneficial unless you have super speed. So depending on the amount of time that you can, slow down somebody, you would need to be faster. So the character, if they have less time to slow down somebody, they would have to be faster. But if they have a longer duration of the ability to slow down time, then they wouldn't need to be that much faster to utilize it necessarily. And then also to the levels, because you can slow down time, because like how much of time can you slow down? Are you slowing it down to like 10%, 25%, 90%? Because if it's on a lower level, a character with a decent level of speed, it will have an effect on them, obviously, but it won't be significant enough to give them an advantage. Because let's say some character can move, close to the speed of light, and then the character can slow down time by 10%, but that character can only move at the speed of sound. So even with the time slowing down power and then moving at the speed of sound, they'll be significantly slower to their opponent, and their the amount of time that they can slow it down to would also be so significant that their opponent, it would give them more of an advantage against them, but not enough to still beat them, and it wouldn't really matter too much. So it really does matter about that. And that's really a way to beat them. Another way is to have the ability to, negate time slowing down powers, because just because a character has these crazy, abilities and hacks and stuff, people need to understand that characters can have that, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work on every character, because there's characters with certain levels of power that can transcend it. Now, obviously, there's also characters who have similar powers to that can, combat it, but there's also just characters who have negation to it. So if a character has time traveling powers themselves, like let's say they can stop time, or they can, go skip forward in time, the slowing down time is not going to be as effective as those ones. Those are going to overwrite those. Especially if you probably have like reality warping, you can warp the reality, and then that's like a battle of what is more dangerous, to have the ability to warp time and mess with time, or the ability to warp space and mess with space. Because space time, they're pretty much interconnected, but when you use them as separate powers, what affects what they have. But yeah, slowing down time is definitely, even with it being the weakest time manipulating powers, the ability to manipulate time is so OP that even the weakest version of it is still pretty ridiculously powerful. So a character slowing down time, I'm not trying to say it's not going to be useful at all, but I just think that there are ways to beat it. If you have a character who is insanely fast, that it won't really matter, or if they can negate time manipulation powers altogether, or have time manipulation powers of their own that can negate that fact. And then we have skipping time, like hits one. And Dragon Ball Super perfectly showed how you can counter that. Basically, two ways. One way the Goku did it was anticipating the guy's move. So he took a couple of hits, and then he realized that, hey, I can take his the damage. But he's not just going to take the damage to just take it. He took it to analyze his movements and his fighting style. After he got down his fighting style, he was able to realize his patterns and realize where he was going to hit him. So even though Goku couldn't really directly stop it, he knew beforehand that Hit had a certain fighting style that directly targeted vital points, and he was going to go for specific vital points. So Goku got into stances where only specific parts of his vital points would be exposed, and he knew which ones were going to be exposed, so he knew how to counteract that. So that is one way you can counteract somebody with skipping through time abilities, is by being able to read their fighting style and movements and being able to predict it. By predicting it, you can basically set a trap and do it beforehand. But this is a highly strategic fighting style. So a character would be more strategic, have to be decently fast, and have to be decently durable, because if they're taking hits from these guys, they have to take a couple of hits to recognize patterns on how to beat them. Just like in boxing, when you see like Canelo Alvarez, he's taking shots, but he is tough enough to handle it, and when he's taking those shots, he's basically reading his opponent's striking, so he can find a perfect time to counter him. So it's basically just finding the perfect counter for it. But you would need to be durable enough to tank the hits. You need to be fast enough to be able to counter him, and then you also need to be strategic enough to be able to analyze their fighting style and predict their next move. So they might be able to see your next move, but you can predict it. to prevent it. And then Vegeta also showed a very impressive way to handle it, where he allowed him to get hit and then he grabbed onto him. So he's like, oh, if you're gonna skip through time, I can grab onto you. But it didn't work out for him. Obviously, he got hit still. But I guess if you have fast enough reflexes where you catch them and instantly strike back, then you can hit them. But Vegeta just caught onto it and he's like, oh yeah, I can hurt you. He gave hit enough time. So if you don't give them enough time, maybe you can just, attack them back. Then another way to do it is kind of how Dispo and Jiren showed throughout the Tournament of Power, is there's some tail signs that's a giveaway that he's going to use it. So both Dispo and Jiren were able to find out that he sends out a vibration before he does it. Now this doesn't mean that every character that has this ability is going to have some obvious tell that's going to be like hits one, where it's some vibrations that you can pick up and then react to it before he does it. But you can also kind of tell that when he does it and realize that, hey, he's going to do it this time. So if you also realize your opponent when he does it, you can also counteract it. But then again, there's also the how serious is the effect of the ability, because his time skipping ability was limited. It was very short amount of time, but with his insane speed and precision, it was very useful. But as he fought Goku and he fought Jiren and Dispo, he realized that there's characters that are way more faster and powerful. So for him to be able to utilize that perfectly, he would need to extend his time skipping abilities to further length of time. So the further the length of time, the harder it's going to be. The shorter, it's easier. So it would really depend on your speed and being able to handle it. Obviously, once again, if you have the ability to negate time manipulation, or just as a whole, you either can negate it where it has no effects on you, so you have protection against the hex ability, or you can have a time manipulation power of your own that can, counteract it. Like, if you have the ability to stop time, you can stop time before they, skip forward in time, and then you can beat the crap out of them. So that's far more impressive. So there's that. And then time stopping. This is very dangerous. We saw characters like Goldo, but there is ways to handle it. Now, there's different characters on how their time stopping powers work. For Goldo's, he had to hold his breath, so it was easier. He had a limited duration that he can stop time. Some characters are going to have a lot longer. But from what we saw with his fight, a lot of times, even with he was stopping time, he was screwed, because whenever he would do it, Gohan and Krillin were so fast that they would launch an attack and then move to the side. And he was able to, see them, but they were moving so fast that if they were just a little bit faster, they could have gotten him. So it does take some time to, enact the time stopping ability. And if they can withstand your blows even in this time stopped state, if they're able to recognize that, then if they have insane levels of speed and accuracy, they could just speed blitz you before you do it, either before you ever do it or do it again. And stopping time is very dangerous, because you basically would have to hit them beforehand, because you can't really do anything to them afterwards, like with hit stuff. And even if, let's say you can, let's say you are able to do something, you still took a significant amount of damage in that stop time position. You're basically screwed at this point. Also, I forgot to mention another one is rewinding time. I will talk about that too, because I also think it's kind of like stop time on the same level of it. But stopping time, really the only ways I can see it is if you're fast enough, you can speed blitz them and take them out before that, or you have abilities where you can negate time stopping abilities, or you have your own time traveling powers, like where you can rewind time or just manipulate it with time itself. That should be higher than time stopping, so that should give you a countermeasure to that. But another way to do it, and this is a little scientific, is, well, in science it shows that when something moves at the speed of light, it basically stops time. It doesn't technically stop time, but it moves so fast that time literally stops. So if you're a character that can move faster than the speed of light, especially many times faster than the speed of light, even if a character can have time stopping abilities, that character that can move at the speed of light or many times faster than the speed of light would be able to break that. So we've seen characters that have been able to move through it. And this is a topic that I've talked about before, especially in it was the Trunks versus, I think, not Hypersonic. Who is it? I think it was just Hyper, whatever his name was. But he basically had the ability to stop time, and then they also mentioned that video where, Sonic was able to move through stop time, and they're trying to make the argument that he was strong enough that he was above time, so he was fourth dimensional. Whereas my argument was the reason he was able to negate it was because he can move faster than light, which will basically give you the ability to stop. If you move that speed, time would basically stop anyway. So you'll be messing with time by moving at those speeds. Time just gets manipulated at those speeds. So you wouldn't even need to have time manipulating powers, or you be above time manipulation itself. You wouldn't need to be a fourth D being. All you would really need to be, if we're going scientifically, is being faster than the speed of light or at the speed of light, because they also have the same similar properties for that. But yeah, it really depends, because some fictional characters, they might have characters that can move faster than the speed of light, but that doesn't, they don't move so fast that time stops or affects time at all. Whereas other fictional universes, they might implement the fact that in science that's the case. So that's also a thing that can be put up there. So that's pretty cool, I think, to take into consideration. There's many different ways to negate the time stopping. You can, like I said, also rewind time. If you got hurt by the time stop, you can rewind the time and prevent him from doing that damage. So it could really prevent that serious, significant damage that was done to you, and it would really not have that much of an effect. But yeah, time stopping is very, very dangerous unless the character has some problem that you can exploit with it, like Goldo's one. It's going to be very hard to beat somebody with the ability to purely just stop time. But yeah, you have that. Then you have rewinding time. We've seen characters who have this ability where there's a character who's beating them up, and these guys are struggling, so to beat them, they rewind time and go back to handle them. Now, this is very powerful, but there's ways to beat this. I think the best example that I ever saw was in Code Geass, the movie that they had, where Lelouch was against this woman who couldn't rewind time, and every time she rewinded time, his mind was so strategic that he was able to, create countermeasures for every time she changed it up. So if you're intelligent enough, let's say you're fighting an opponent and you do your thing and they see it and they get damaged, and then they go back in time. By seeing, if you're strategic enough, even with that hindrance and disadvantage in your corner, if you're smart and strategic enough, you'll be able to adapt on the fly. So characters that can adapt to fights would be able to handle it. So if they were doing what they were doing before, and the other person is able to counter it, they're in a bad position. But if they're strategic enough, they would be able to be prepared for even the countermeasure that they have and be able to come back. It's basically just like, at that point, it would be like a regular fight where, well, a little bit more than a regular fight, because they'll know your moves, but you will just need to adapt to it. Like if you're fighting somebody who is very, skilled and is able to read you, you'll just need to adapt and be better to be able to handle them. And then it'll just be like a regular fight where it's back and forth, trying to analyze each other and see, holes in each other's fighting style or senses. So yeah, you can have that with rewinding time. You can, also, if the character, instantly can kill them before they rewind time, it won't matter. So if they're against a character that's really powerful, no matter how many times that character rewinds time, if that character is too powerful to beat, rewinding time is all it's going to do is put you back in a bad situation. So like, they're a danger level threat, and no matter what you do to them, they're going to be able to kill you because they're way above you in all aspects. So going back in time is not going to work against a character that's way more powerful than you, faster than you, stronger than you, more durable than you. It will only work against a character that's more around your level of power, where, hey, it's like, well, I made mistakes. If I go back, I could, and if I corrected them, I could have got the advantage. But if it's against an opponent that's way too powerful, it's like, well, if I go back, there's no mistakes to correct. It's just they're beyond me. I can't handle that. So there's that also there. So it can be very dangerous, but it also depends on the level of the threat that are against an opponent. And then time manipulation as a whole is basically all the different time abilities rolled into one. It doesn't have to be. It could just simply be, you going freely through time back and forth and just changing events through time, which will affect, the future outcome. Or it could also be you have the manipulation of all time-based abilities. So you can slow down time, you can rewind time, you can stop time, you can skip forward in time, you can, just alter through time itself. So you have all that. Once again, this is limited. Some characters might have a limited amount of time that they can go. Some characters might be able to only go forward in time or backwards in time. So that could be a big hindrance. Or they might have a limited amount of time that they could go back or forward in time, or they will, also have rules that if they go back in time, it'll create a time paradox. So there's rules that, that become a challenge for you manipulating time itself as a whole. So that could also be a problem there. But let's just say, like, they don't have those problems, that they can manipulate time and stuff, and they can do all those things. That's going to be a very dangerous and lethal opponent to have, because they basically can do whatever with, because messing with time and space is the most OP abilities you can have, because there's not much most characters can do against somebody that can change your history. Now, if it's a character that's come from a fictional world where they have, it creates parallel worlds, it's not going to be as effective. So let's say if there's characters in universes where, time is linear and whatever effects happen in the past change the future, those powers are going to be far more useful for that. But if you have a fictional world like Dragon Ball where, you mess with time, it creates a separate timeline, some of the powers will still work, but the significant ones that you want to use won't work. So yes, slowing down time, speeding time, and stopping time, and even reversing time like we saw with, Whis, definitely would work. Even in Dragon Ball's universe, those would work. But manipulating freely through time, like just going back in the past to kill Goku, is not going to kill Goku. It's just going to kill an alternate timeline of Goku. So it's not going to really have an effect on him. So that ability would not work in those universes, but those other ones coming together would. But for all of them, once again, all you would need is for a character to have the ability to, negate time manipulating powers altogether. So those wouldn't work anyway. Time wouldn't have any effect on him. 2, to be above time itself, so be like above 4D, which would automatically make time manipulating powers useless against a character like that. Or they could, have time manipulation powers of their own that they could use. But the best way to handle like an all-around like time manipulating person or a character that has that is to have a ridiculous amount of power, because with that ridiculous amount of power, even if they can stop time and stuff like that. So let's say there's a character that can stop time. What if you stop time and your opponent is so durably powerful that no matter how much you hit them, it's not going to do any significant damage? So if they have a high level of durability, even stopping time, your attack potency won't be high enough to destroy the person. So it would help out to save you, but it wouldn't really work to defeating them. The best that a character with time stopping abilities could do at that point is use that time stopping to run away and find some distance from them. But getting into a fight with them that is way faster, way more durable than them, it's not really going to work. And then like slowing down time, if you're very fast, it won't really have that much effect. If you can skip forward in time, if you can predict it and also are fast enough, you can counter it and also predict what they're going to do. So there's many countermeasures you can have to these. So, but mainly it would focus on how powerful you are. Because if you're overly powerful, way more powerful than them, then all those time manipulating powers will not really affect you that much. Except for maybe going back in time and killing a weaker version of you. That's the only way to use it. But like slowing down time and all that stuff would not work. Especially if you have speed. If you have like decent enough speed, like faster than light, then slowing down time is not going to really affect you too much. Even if it's at a high level, stopping time, characters that can move faster than the speed of light can break through stop time. People always say that you need to be, I forgot it was like immeasurable or calculable speed, but they say it's that ridiculous levels of speed. You really don't, because a lot of characters that move at the speed of light, especially if they're going based off more scientifically writing, then they should be able to, stopping time should not work at all, because moving at that speed, they would be breaking stop time itself. They would be manipulating time. And with going faster than the speed of light, you can go backwards and forward in time anyway, so you wouldn't really need time manipulation powers either to do that. So let's say there's a character that can go back in time, okay? And they're going back in time. If you have the speed, like fast and light speed, you can travel back in time too. So if they're going back in time through, using time manipulation, you can simply do that just by running at that speed. So going at, high speeds basically is kind of like a big countermeasure to time traveling itself. And it's kind of a form of time traveling too. It's just a different means. One is directly through an ability, whereas the other one is through, I mean, this is also kind of ability, having super speed, but that one is a hex ability, like a specific ability for that. Whereas this one is just generally speed, just at the higher levels, you manipulate time more. Like at the lower levels, you can have super speed, but it won't really affect time. You can go faster than the speed of sound multiple times, and that wouldn't affect time really. Whereas if you go faster than the speed of light or at the speed of light, you would be literally affecting time at that point. Your speed will be so high that it has an effect on time itself. So you wouldn't even need to have ridiculously time hacks abilities or whatever. You could simply just move faster than the speed of light, and you can negate a lot of these powers. Or you could just do what Goku does, and has the power where he gets so strong that even those hacks abilities don't affect him, because his time skip didn't affect him when he was going to his Kaken times 10 blue form. He was able to break it only when hit was increasing the power of it. Then it became more powerful. So then at that point it would just be how much more powerful is your opponent compared to you and your ability. So there's that. So yeah, there's many things to go into it. It's a lot more complex. If you guys have any other arguments on how to be time traveling, or have any other time traveling abilities that I didn't mention, definitely mention it, because I know I kind of left some out. I'm kind of a little rusty. I haven't done this for quite a bit. I know it's just a month, but yeah. So if there's anything I'm missing, just remind me. But I think those are pretty good bases to cover. It's very hard to beat it, just like reality warping. Like I said, there's a couple of key things that you can use, but unlike reality warping, you have another thing that can counter it without being exactly it. Whereas, like, for example, like I said, speed. You would just going at that high speeds is basically like a form of time manipulation. Whereas reality warping, there's no real counter to reality warping besides just reality warping as its power and itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys are happy that I'm back, and I want to give once again a big shout out to Zone Z1 for making that thumbnail. He doesn't have to do it, but he's doing it out of the kindness of his heart, which means a lot to me. And like I said, I will be doing the redone version of Death Battles Goku vs. Superman Part 1 and 2, so I'll be redoing those. I'll basically be going through the same points, but I'll have a more polished video, because my last video was it had some problems. It had problems because the software that I was using was struggling with recording. It was very glitchy. The audio would sync in and out. So this one should be a clean production. Though I'll try not to pause too much on that video. And on top of it, in that video, I will remove the fighting scene. In the original one, I talked about the fight itself, but I know a lot of people say that Screwtax says the fighting is just for visuals. It's not for, analysis. So I'll just mainly focus on the post-analysis they gave and the pre-analysis and post-analysis that they gave instead of the fight itself. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned for next time.